Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. Alright, first question. Hey Jason, I know in the past you've stated that a lifter would have to alter the Texas method. What would be some quick general changes you would recommend an intermediate lifter makes? Thanks, Coach. Looking great, by the way. When it comes to something like the Texas method, let's be honest, the real issue here is lack of enough training volume. What is one of the defining characteristics of an intermediate lifter versus a novice lifter? They have weak points, right? Hopefully we all understand this. People say, well, don't novice lifters have weak points? Yeah, their entire body is weak. Your first year in the gym, everything is a weak point. Therefore, everything needs equal amounts of stimulation. Now, of course, people will say, well, wouldn't that eventually create some imbalances? Yes, because everyone is different in terms of structure and muscle and everything else. But if you just train everything equally and maximally, and I'm talking all your basic lifts, you'll proportion out in terms of strength and muscular development pretty much relative to your genetic potential. Intermediate lifters have weak points. So the problem with any sort of cookie cutter template is that it has to have accessory movements added. And any basic template can work. It doesn't matter whether it's my intermediate program, right? I have an intermediate linear program, and I don't even want to call it mine. People say that it's yours. Not really. It's just 5 basic lifts put into linear block periodization. That's not special. That's something I literally sat down and wrote in 5 minutes because I know basic training programming. It is just a textbook linear periodization. And then it says add accessories, right? Well, it's the same thing with the Texas method. If you were to run it as is, it wouldn't work. Just like my linear program, it's got 5 exercises. Intermediates have no business only doing 5 exercises. Now, novice lifters do, not intermediates. So what's the biggest change you should make to the Texas method? You're going to need more training volume. You're going to need actual supplemental lifts. You need supplemental lifts at that point, just like every other intermediate. And so that's the biggest change that you have to make. And that's the problem people make with a cookie cutter template. They get to something like that and they think they're supposed to leave it as is and not add anything, and that's a problem. Whereas the problem is reversed for the novice. Novices want to add stuff that they don't need. And so they get it mixed up. And usually more intermediate lifters have run a cookie cutter template as a novice correctly so that they're no longer a novice, and then they think that that's what they're supposed to do forever. And unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. So that's really the big change you need to make to it. There's nothing wrong with it as a bare bones structure, but it needs additional stuff added to address all your various weak points. All right, next question. Jason, you cover a lot of training, but could you show us what your diet consists of and how you incorporate it around your training, i.e. pre and post workout meals, the timing, benefits, etc.? Cheers. No, I don't want to show anybody. And for me, it's not that what I eat is special. It's not that there's any secrets. It's not that I'm hiding anything. It's that I deal with so much crazy nonsense online that I just want to deter it. And so any aspect of my personal life that's not lifting, I don't want to make it public anymore. And hopefully people can understand and respect that, because they haven't seen all the stuff that's happened over the years and they don't realize how extreme some of this stuff got offline, that maybe they don't understand that, and that's okay. That's okay. They just need to accept the fact that I'm not going to show my food and I don't want to eat on camera. So that being said, what do I eat? I just follow a straight keto diet. Now, it's not saying I don't occasionally have a carb meal, but that gets into my personal life as to why I might do a 12-hour or 16-hour fast and then have one carb meal once every few months. It has to do with social situations and things. Outside of that, I don't eat carbs. Not really. Like 20 grams, maybe 25 grams in a day, depending on if I'm eating some Greek yogurt. So what do I eat? These days I eat mostly beef, like red meat. Doesn't matter whether it's ground beef that I cook with veggies in it or steaks or whatever, because I buy large amounts of beef on sale. If sirloin steaks are on sale, I buy 30 pounds of it and stock it in the freezer. If ground beef is on sale, I buy 30 pounds of it and stock it in the freezer. So I eat a lot of beef, a lot of eggs. I do a lot of full-fat dairy. Sometimes it's phases of full-fat Greek yogurt, like some Fage, or otherwise I do a lot of mozzarella cheese. Right, so that's mostly what I eat. Occasionally I eat some chicken wings and bone-in meats like that. But for the most part, my diet revolves around beef, full-fat dairy. So it's eggs, other dairy, Red meat, basically just beef, bone-in meats, and then I eat a bunch of vegetables. Do I have weeks where I incorporate pecans and stuff? Sure, absolutely. Do I have weeks where I don't eat any nuts? Absolutely. Green vegetables, I like to do a lot of broccoli, a lot of spinach. That's what I eat. That's pretty much it, day in and day out. There's no real variation, and it's boring. I don't season my food. I add extra salt. I salt all of my food really heavily. So, I mean, literally people get bored. They're like, what did you eat today? Well, I ate 1.5 pounds of ground beef with 1/2 pound of broccoli cooked in it with a bunch of sea salt poured on it, and 6 eggs and some cheese. That's pretty boring. There's nothing exciting about that. That's how I eat day in and day out. These days, I do a protein shake post-workout, not because of the anabolic window or carbs, just to make sure I get some extra protein in. I mix a little creatine with it. So I do drink some optimal nutrition, chocolate whey after I train. Pre-workout, I mainly just always eat eggs because I can put extra salt. So I put a very copious amount of sea salt in my eggs, and I usually cook some eggs. Sometimes there's some ground beef in it. Sometimes there's some diced up steak. I don't eat vegetables before I train. I save them towards later in the day. If it's a non-training day, I usually wait to eat breakfast till a little later, and I usually throw my veggies in the first meal. That's literally what I eat, and it's nothing special about it. And it would be boring and bland, and that's how I have dieted here. That's why I've been able to always know and perfectly track my body weight. That's why I've been able to slowly recomp, is because it's very, very consistent, guys, and it really isn't that special. But I only eat a handful of foods, and that's pretty much my everyday. That's how I eat. All right, next question. What is the most significant strength training concept you have changed your opinion on in the last 2 years? Also, have you read any new books on strength and conditioning that have influenced you? Application of basic principles. No, I haven't read any new books really that I can think of. I mean, I always read through some of the same old books. But what has changed the most? My acceptance that smaller exercises have their place in strength training. And that's something that I don't always like to promote because I really want to push novice lifters away from it. And even though I do it myself more and more, I am almost scared to promote it. I'm scared to promote it because I feel like if I say it's okay to do curls, novice lifters are going to throw away everything and just do curls and bench all day. Right? And so I almost don't want to say it's okay to do these things or that they're necessary for the advanced lifter, because it's not a problem doing supplemental work. The problem is that when people use supplemental work in place of the big exercises, right? That's the problem. When you start replacing big exercises with smaller exercises, that's a problem. It absolutely is. I'll go so far as to say that I've even accepted that machines can have their place as accessory movements. Curls have their place as an accessory movement. Tricep extensions, even leg curls. They have a place as accessory movements. However, they need to be programmed in the sense of they're only done for muscles that you are struggling with your total maximum recoverable volume versus those muscles still lagging and needing additional workload. In other words, it's not that you can't build the biggest chest possible with the bench press. You can. There is no reason you can't. It's that you might reach a threshold to where your total recovery, because the bench press is difficult, becomes an issue. You can only handle so many sets of it before you start getting overuse injuries. And then maybe you need additional tricep work. Or maybe you're an extremely tricep dominant bencher whose triceps blow up and your pecs lag, and you might need a smaller exercise for your chest. Right? That's what we're talking about. I don't believe in this concept that you need to take all the muscles and do smaller exercises. That's literally moronic. That's moronic. It really is. Big exercises should always be the bulk of your training, and they're your primary mass builders. But do smaller movements absolutely have a place? Yeah, they really do. And that's probably the biggest change I've made in not being dogmatic about. Right? I don't think we should be dogmatic about that. We need to be with novice lifters. We need to keep them the hell away from the small exercises, because novice lifters are inherently lazy. They haven't developed a work ethic yet. And if you let them do that stuff, they'll get lazy and do it instead of the real work. So I'm still reluctant to promote it unless it's very, very careful in my promotion of it. But all of my clients do small exercises, all of my coaching clients, because they have weak links. They have weak points that need to be addressed with extra volume. All right, next question. Update on your natty status, please, Coachella. I'm a former gear user, therefore I'm not natural. Right? The reason we've had to discuss the other stuff is because of the fact that I did come off everything. I even came off my TRT, and the fact that I had been on TRT was being used as an excuse to say I should look like Ronnie Coleman, because obviously he doesn't use 1,000 times the amount of stuff someone on TRT does. And most guys on TRT don't even look like they lift, right? The average guy on TRT doesn't look like they lift at all. So it needed to be addressed. Because of the legal climate in the world today, if I ever choose to go back on, I'm not going to discuss it publicly. There won't be any discussion of it. And that's just a simple reality. That's the way it has to be. I'm not going to stand around and claim natty at any such point. All I've said is that I came off all the TRT. I was normal production because of HR, or basically advanced PCT I did. I ran basically Dr. Michael Scali's Power PCT, which does involve substances, and that's what I did to get my production back online for a while. Now, what I do moving forward from there, I've given everybody the tools that they need. If anybody ever needs to ask if I've gone on anything or not in the future, I'm never going to answer it. They're going to have to just look at it. I've given everybody all the tools that they need to identify when people are enhanced and try to guess what they think that they're on, right? I mean, there's been enough information between everyone from me and people like Greg Doucette have put out stuff that people should be able to look at other people and just know. You either know or you don't. But for me, ever in the future regarding that, I'm never going to say anything. So when people say Jason's an admitted gear user, well, that's just not going to be true, because the last update you guys got, I was legitimately off TRT, had legitimately done a bunch of PCT, and had spent a very significant amount of time not on TRT. And that's the last update anyone will ever get. So as far as my personal statements, that I am a former gear user, and the last that anyone knows I wasn't using anything. And I'm just not going to change that stance publicly because of all the things around it. However, whether I choose to ever do anything or not again in the future, I'm not going to promote or glorify gear use ever. And I'm never going to jump up and claim natural status, therefore, by my products. Because that's ultimately what we're always concerned about. Because here's the reality. The entire industry is on. Let's just call it what it is. Anybody out there who is selling you products claiming they're natural, I guarantee you there's a 99.9% chance they aren't. That's just a simple reality. When you go into this industry buying products, assume every person who is advertising or teaching is using. This industry is that heavily enhanced. It really is. Make that assumption and base whether you buy a product or a service or not, base it upon the quality of the product or service, not the perceived results of the person who's claiming it was natural. And if you do that, you're never going to be ripped off. But you're just never going to get another update from me again. That's just how it's going to be, and hopefully people can accept that. And if they can't, that's too bad. That's too bad. It'll never be something I discuss again until we live in a world to where those sort of products are completely legal over the counter with no social or legal repercussions. And I think the guys who discuss it openly, who live in countries where it's illegal, I think they're complete fools. And they really shouldn't do that, in my opinion. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.